Hello, everyone. Hello, my guest, Otakara Klettke. Welcome so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation because you've blown me away. And because you've blown me away, I know you are going to blow away our audience.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our body and how to deal with it in a better way, in a more aware way, in a different way. It's such exciting stuff, this. But before we start, can you please tell us a little bit about your own history, where you've come from to the place where you are now the body whisperer?
Thank you. Yes. I was born as a child, obviously, in the Czech Republic. I'm going to say that just so we have the accent out of the way, and Czechoslovakia at the time. And although I was born as a very healthy baby, very soon after I was born, when I was a little toddler, I started to have a health issues that started pretty much since the age of 2, where I first died almost from repeated pneumonias. And it's kind of carried on in my life throughout my childhood. And it seemed like every year something new would pile on, and I would have different organs issues and failures and more and more doctors restrictions. And I was on special diet, so my liver would handle existing and functioning in my body, and I was not allowed to get tired. I was not allowed to do PE classes. There was a lot I was not allowed to do. Still, a lot of the time I was being ill. I was at home. Later, once I was teen, I spent quite a bit of time in a hospital. So I would say I would spend more time in hospitals than I actually spent at school itself. So I would say I was much more raised by doctors than like teachers at school, spent more time there. And as a child, you kind of take it as goes. It was not something that I necessarily felt totally bad about, because it's just how it was. It was kind of like you get used to, as this is how it was growing up. So um, I was not, I think my parents suffered more than I did from that. But as I was growing up and turned teenager, I did not want no longer be under the influence of the parents and the doctors and everybody worried about me, because as a teenager you get a rebel. And one thing that I always wanted to do was to travel, which was very hard if you constantly, even if I was healthy or I was somewhat okay, traveling was always like an issue, because there was always the potential something would go wrong. And at the same time, when I was a teen, a political thing happened in a Czechoslovakia at the time. You know, the communistic regime fell down, and all of a sudden borders opened, and then everybody was able to travel, which made me want to travel that much more, because all of a sudden it was not just like traveling in the Eastern Bloc, but it was also traveling all over the world. So I really, really wanted to travel, and it was the first time when I turned 18, I had immediately passport and I immediately left the country. That was the first thing I did when I turned 18. And from that on, I just realized that the traveling was a huge passion. And for that, I needed to have the healthy body. And I started to kind of make these inner deals, like just hang on for whatever 4 days. We're gonna fly there or go there, and we're gonna travel a little. Then I'll come back. If I'm supposed to fall ill, kind of with that body, let's do it when I would get back. And interestingly enough, the body really did respond. I would very rarely, I only had one incident where I actually caught a pink eye. So it was really not even, it was very contagious thing that I got while traveling. It was the only thing that ever happened to me. And I would travel to all kinds of locations. And I know that I was not always able to eat the perfect diet that I was supposed to. So I knew there was like all these things, like, I could eat something that potentially my liver wouldn't handle. And it's hard for me to control that if you're traveling. And so as I was doing this, I realized that there was like some level of control I had over it. While I would come back and I would fall ill, I wouldn't be okay through the travels. And so as the time went on, and I was in my 20s, I eventually actually moved. I spent 6 months in Austria, 3 months in Brazil, several months here and there in the United States. Then I moved to America. So I needed to really, really get better for these extended stays to be able to really get to know the cultures where I was going. And eventually the body really responded that I slowly fixed all these issues. All of a sudden, my liver was responding okay to all food, although they were things that I stopped eating, but it was just because, like deep fried food was not good for me, none or less. So it was like they were things I completely stopped anyway. I would not choose to eat, but I was well. And then I just realized that it was a huge deal of this inner dialogue I was having with my body and addressing my body as a separate entity than myself, than the self and itself. And so through doing this, I came to very slowly over the years, I came to this way of having this relationship that all of a sudden started to becoming a real, very tangible relationship. Then I got married in States, had a daughter, and was on a similar scale of doing this with my daughter that I realized that one of the things as a mother of a newborn child.
Can I just, before you tell us about your daughter, can I just double check with something quickly? Because this is such an interesting thing you just said here. So in a way, what you stopped doing was you stopped believing the story that you are so sick because you wanted to travel. You had a passion for something. So you stopped buying into that story that you are too sick to do it.
Exactly. The passion was bigger than the excuse.
Over belief, because a lot of people
Absolutely.
who, I've been struggling so long with autoimmune and all strange things going on, and I got to a stage where I've honestly been feeling like my body is failing me. I've always been healthy and nothing ever got wrong, and now what is going on? These last 10 years, I can't just get over adrenal burnout, and I feel better, but I don't feel better, and I feel better, but I don't feel better, but I haven't lost the belief that my body has failed me.
That's amazing.
Carry on.
That's so
Carry on.
important.
Yes, okay.
That's absolutely important. And so,
Yeah.
and it's where I ended was with having the little daughter, and I realized how much the mother of a newborn actually has a huge, because we are sort of at a time their soul and mind, everything's kind of connected through the mom as they're slowly separate. And so I realized how much that was even a big thing in the life of the baby for me. And so, and then later, the big story kind of where I decided to get so much more into it. With the other thing was that I always loved books, especially because when I was little and I was in bed and growing up in the communism, there was nothing on TV. I was really rarely going to school. Thankfully, I was intelligent enough to keep up without problems. So I didn't need spend much energy on a school. But both my parents had this excessive library, and we had a library in my town. And so I became this voracious reader, and I wanted to be an author. So it was always my dream. And so when I was turning 40 for my 40th birthday, I kind of gave myself a gift, and I wrote a book called Hear Your Body Whisper, How to Unlock Your Self-Healing Mechanism, because I really wanted to get this message out. Since then, I wrote and published a couple more books. I have some children's series, and I wrote a book, Hear Your Brain Whisper, How to Unlock Your Mind's Potential, which is kind of a independent following of the first book, where the first book focuses on human body. The second book is solely focuses on human brain. That became a huge passion of mine. And from then on, I started working with people, started collecting the stories, starting to seeing how actually, because I was getting I was very lucky. My first book was incredibly successful especially for first-time author. And so I was getting all these emails and all these stories, and I started to helping people out and started to collecting and seeing the patterns. That was the main thing. And I just realized that if we're healthy or not, no matter what, is the health or sickness is a result of our relationship with our body. It is the result. It is not the result of anything else. It is the result of our relationship with our body. And it can become a snowball effect through the time, because once the people start feeling that their body fails them or their body hates them, and like things that I hear from people, they feel like, my body's just, and they have this like negative talk towards their body, negative things. And with a change of perspective of realizing that the body does always the best it can under the circumstances, this relationship, when repaired, can be, it's hard to say until you experience it, but it can be felt just the same way as your relationship with like your pet or your child. I don't say it's a relationship on the same level as you would feel like with your partner, except on some level it is. It's more that you are the leader, your soul, your mind, you're kind of the leader, and you're helping their body that is this beautiful child that allows you this existence in this day and time of your soul to be here and to be anchored here. And that relationship can be felt on a very real scale, and it can be just beautiful. And once it thrives, the body thrives, the body becomes extremely vivacious. Like myself, I'm 45, I'm gonna be 46, and actually right now I'm pregnant. So that's kind of like where it led me. I actually was not really trying to get pregnant, but the body was just so vibrant, and I got from really having this super sick childhood to, if I didn't have a belly right now, I'd be running every day and doing so much for my body, having this relationship, taking every single day. I've been taking time with my body to take the moment with this relationship so it doesn't fall off, right? So it's not just some quick moment of like existence or maintenance level where you're just like maintaining the body, just doing some gym workout. It's a different thing. So like you're actually taking the time. Just like if you want to stay married for 50 years, 60, 70 years, you have to work on that relationship. You're not going to stay married and be happy because there will never, ever be a hiccup or issue in that marriage. It's the same thing with the body. So like if you keep maintaining and you keep doing it, the body just shows up for you on an absolutely incredible level. And it does not really matter where is your starting point.
Okay, so now we have people who don't understand this. Like I've just said to you, first I thought I was indestructible, and then and now I've got this feeling like my body let me down. So when we have these, and I know a lot of people look at themselves and they don't even like how they look, and they have so many criticisms against their body, their physical appearance. And where do we start? What is our to come away from that attitude that we have of being critical of ourselves, of identifying with whatever sickness it is, that we're experiencing. How do we get away from it? Where do we start?
That's a great question. You start with actually not seeing your body as yourself, because, if I tell you like, what is this? You say it's my head. It's not you, right? This is your heart. It's still not you, still your hand. So you actually, even subconsciously, you already know you are not your body. We just approach the body when we are upset. We approach the body as the body itself, as ourselves, as that's who we are, as that we are ourselves, and that's entirely not true. So who we are actually is this, like I look at it, especially my first book, as our body is this beautiful farm. We have, we harbor about 10,000 different species, trillions of bacteria and viruses total on top our skin, inside our body. So we have this incredible army that is working for us, that is digesting for us, that is extracting vitamins, that makes our life even possible. The body itself is only like the big platform, but without all those little workers that are not us, right? Like you are not your bacteria whatsoever. At that point, you definitely know that. And they actually
and we've got all these red blood cells going everywhere, and white blood cells going everywhere, and enzymes going here and there. So it's like this whole plumbing system inside you.
Right. And they all have their own life, and
Mm.
basically you have 90% of your cells in your body are not even human. Only 10% of cells are even human cells. So you're really not yourself. What you are as a self is your soul and a little bit of that mind that kind of overlaps. We can talk about this later. Overlaps the mind and the body, but it is not your body. So if you want to stop blaming your body, you want to stop, seeing yourself, because you're really not seeing yourself. Just drop the idea that it's self. Just look at it, that what you see is this amazing farm of helpers and who are here to just allow you this beautiful existence that we have. That's just this incredible gift to be able to experience life in itself. And and if you look at it, it's much easier to not to see that way. Like, you kind of, once you give that idea up, you give up the idea of criticizing. At the same time, you kind of, I have to have given warning, you give up the idea of, like, if somebody gives you a lot of compliments, you got to understand the compliment, it goes to the body, it does not go to, like, self either. Like, somebody says, like, you have this gorgeous, beautiful body. You can thank your genes for, that you carried from your parents. You can thank for the way you care for your body, but it's really not something that we should. And because we have this, like, feeling of, like, we want to get all these, like, the goodies to ourselves. So in the same time, we want to then blame the body on the opposite way. So, like, once you realize that, like, that's really not you, neither of it, like, whether somebody says, nice ass, you don't really, it's not really you as much as it's the body itself. Just as much, if there is something that bothers you on a body, it's really not you either. And if it's something that it bothers you as far as, like, the health or the way the body shows up as a result, which a lot of times for a lot of people it's being overweight, for example, it's still the body's trying to do its best to help whatever the situation you are presenting, whatever the relationship you are presenting. Because in the end of the day, especially, for example, with the people who are overweight, the joints, they don't want to carry this extra weight. They really don't. Like, your body doesn't want to do that. But if it's under stress and it feels like it's some sort of a primal situation of a need of survival, it's gonna go in that survival mode, and it's going to show up with either diseases, excess weight, having a heart issues, having all these things, having the weak link, because every single body has some way of the weak link that it's genetically given to us. That one person, if they're going to be stressed too much or the relationship is not good, it may show up on their heart. With another person, it may show up in their liver. With another person, it may show up by gaining weight. So every single person has a different place it's going to show up. It's always some kind of a weak spot, but it does not have to show up at all if that relationship it's really correct.
Okay, so first of all, when we have to learn, if I understand this correctly, that we are not to blame the body for, or are not to reject the body, and we have to drop the idea that the body has any kind of desire to be against us. We have to start looking at as a body as an amazing entity that is there to help us achieve our highest goals. Is that
Absolutely, because it is. The body is amazing. Like, sometimes I talk to people and they, like, think wrong, and and if I actually point them out, like, what their body truly did for them, like, it's when you change that perspective and see how much your body actually does for you. Your body has never, ever, there's not a single person watching this video whose body gave up on them. Because if they are alive, and they are alive in this, and they're watching, they're breathing, their body has never given up on them. Which a lot of times, unfortunately, we cannot say that about our mind. We give up on our body so often, but the body
and
has
not
never
and
done that.
and then we don't treat our body as good as we can, as that would produce optimum health in us.
Absolutely, absolutely, Absolutely. And then we make the body feel guilty for something the body didn't do. It's almost like, the mind has this abusive need to like guilt the body for something that is absolutely in no way, shape, or form the body's fault.
Yeah, I can see if we separate the two, I can see how we sort of then get the obligation to take better care of this vessel instead of going in a kind of into a victim mode of like, I'm the victim of my body. Suddenly you become the custodian. And when you are the custodian, you have a whole different relationship with your body.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about soldiering the body. That
Okay.
that's
Socializing the body. That's what I call what we often do. And it works short term sometimes, and it doesn't work long term, and it's also unsustainable. And that's what we do when we feel like all of a sudden, something's wrong. I gained weight. My heart's not, right. I went to the doctor. They're telling me you got to get like more exercise, or they're telling me you got to get more of that and this. And so we actually decided, okay, so now I'm going to sign up for a gym and I'm going to start exercising, or I'm going to start this diet. And because it's going to be better, I'm going to do this because I'm going to do, and we start doing these things that we think will help us, really, not the body, that we think is going to like make the body something. We still don't even like involve the body in that conversation, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But like we start doing these things, and let's say like it is not a bad thing to do, because there are a lot of people who do need a certain exercise. So we start doing that, and for a while, and then we're getting the results because the body is responding. But after a while, if this is not internally in alignment with the body, we'll quit doing that. So we can, I talk to people, and I talk to the ladies who'd say like, I suffered with weight gain through this time. And I had this moment in my life when I had a personal trainer, was on a diet, and I really dropped, and I was really in a good body shape, but I was absolutely miserable because I hated what I was eating. I hated working out. And this is what I call the soldiering the body, because we turn the body in a soldier that will perform while being in the army, like just like a soldier while being in the army. But nobody can last there like forever, unless they are the very few people, just like very few soldiers, who make it their life career. So let's say they are those few people who become Olympic athletes. But even then, I think they actually are doing the movement. They're doing the things that is their passion. That's what the body really wants. So they were actually able to align. So I don't even think in that case it's that, because everybody wants to move. I have not met a person, no matter how disabled these people are, the body wants to have a movement. The body does not necessarily want to have the movement you choose for it. It doesn't mean the body wants to do because somebody tells you or sells you some sort of exercise program, then you like soldier body through the exercise. Does not mean that's what is the joyful movement for your body. But every body wants to move. Everybody wants to eat food that is actually good for the body. But it does not mean that you should necessarily choose the diet. It's much better to involve the body, like really focus on this connection, because then the body changes its cravings. And while I work with so many people, and the interesting thing is people always say like, so you work with a diet. I'm like, no, I don't. Because what I work with is your body, and your body will change the cravings, and it will start crave things that actually heal you, that actually help you. So you first have to kind of disconnect the cravings from the addictive things, which might be like sugars. It does not necessarily mean you have to give them up. A lot of people, as long as like you actually understand whether it's the craving of your mind that is wanting like a little bit of a sugar rush, you can totally do it. I'm definitely not a person who says like, you have to like quit doing those things. But if you follow the body will change the things you crave for, and it will crave things that heal the body. It will crave things that makes the body drop weight if needed, long term and forever, because you're no longer wanting to eat things that were harming you. And every single person has something, just like every single person has a different body and different health issues. Every single person should eat different things. So like telling someone like, you should be vegan, everybody should be vegan, or everybody should be, carnivore, and or everybody should eat that, and you're supposed to go on, paleo or microbiotic, and this is the perfect diet. It might be perfect diet for a specific body with a specific needs, but it's definitely not no diet on this planet. It's perfect for every single person. And so it's much more important to actually involve the body in that conversation, to choose and to change the cravings. And it really does, because once the body starts showing up for you, like once it actually realizes, you kind of green light that conversation, you allowing the body to be part of the self, the part of you, it changes things for you. And it just does this like absolutely jaw-dropping, they're like miracles. It's almost hard to explain until you really go through it, because until you have the experience, it is like talking about something that like one doesn't experience it. But once you do, it's just unbelievable what everything the body can do for you.
Okay, so I want to come back a little bit later to illnesses, and maybe we'll get there by ourselves without me going there. But what happens in a body if somebody carries a lot of hurt with him? Like I work with adult child syndrome, which means that most people who are carrying stress from their childhood have a low-grade post-traumatic stress disorder all of their life. They don't actually they're not even aware of it because it's very normal. But this constant state of a lot of control, a lot of anxiety, a lot of scanning the room, a lot of trying to fit into what they think the world wants from them. So low-grade post-traumatic stress disorder all of your life. So what would that whole burden that you carry with you unknowingly, what would that do to your body? And how do you get past that?
Okay, that's a great question, because it's true. A lot of people, like if people carry something really long term, they usually start somewhere in their childhood. If it's not a childhood, then it's like a huge traumatic event, like person being held at gunshot, or someone being raped, or something like this. Like, so a huge single traumatic event can cause that later in life, but usually it's something that it's set in our childhood. And during our childhood, in order to answer this correctly, we got to understand that during our childhood, our brain is not fully developed. It takes us about 25 years before 25 years for women, about 28 years for guys. Sorry guys, we mature faster. Physiologically, that the brain actually is where it needs to be, that the brain has the understanding to comprehend what's happening and to actually place it more correctly. So when something happens during the childhood, and often it doesn't even have to be that it happens to a child. I had a client who was just witnessing, aggressive, traumatic things in her early childhood. She was actually not even per se, her body was not victim of it, but she visually saw it being happening in her life, and that was just enough for her to have this happen. The body sort of disconnects, and the brain at that time is not capable of explaining things correctly. We are as a children, we are very extreme. You're either alive or you're dead. Like, it's either black or white. Like, children don't have this, which in a way makes it much, very beautiful about the way how children explain problems, because they go like, well, then you go fix it, right? But so if they experience some sort of trauma to them and into their existing brain, it's almost like being in danger of life. Something traumatic happened to children. A lot of times they say, like, you say something to your parents, I'm gonna kill them, and they fully believe that, right? Like, so they go with this trauma on, and this is how it matures in their brain. And so what happens to the body goes in a sort of survival mode. And it disconnects from the mind, and it grows up, and it keeps staying in this, depend whatever grade level, but it's a level of a certain way of survival mode where, um, you know, if we think about it, like again, like going back to, for example, the weight gain, it can be that if you're not going to have enough food, you're going to die. And there may be a different way how the body explains it. And then we also have these weak spots, like I talk about, through our genetics that actually show up. But if it's a stress, it will definitely go, and the body definitely feels like there is some sort of survival. And so it's the survival mode has to override, like, the current, because all the body's thinking about is to survive the situation. And a lot of times we go in this, that like, then we address things in life, and we have too much cortisol, the fight and flight hormone that actually goes in us. And instead of us to have that released through the brain in a right moment, we start releasing it too often. And of course, it doesn't help, like the media and things like, today's world that's really pulling on using our brain, whether it's social media, whether it's TV, whether it's whatever comes at us, advertisements, they're really trying to release those neurons in ourselves. So we're sort of getting overdosed by everything without understanding where it's going to lead us. And so by understanding, and so how we get out of it is, first, again, you green light the body, you allow the body to be part of that conversation. And you slowly, once you're able to do it, you're able to create this connection where you go like, you know what, we're not in a survival mode. I have a roof over my head. I have a food on my table. Like, the basic things are met. I don't worry that I'm going to die, that somebody's going to take the gun and pull it to my head necessarily every day. And we kind of can look at it much more objectively, with the body as the participant with us. And then the body, then we start learning how you release those neurotransmitters yourself, and you no longer allow the mind to pull on those things. You're no longer in a situation that the mind can like release these at any time and as much as it wants. So sometimes, obviously, you come into situations, there are moments where you're going to have, life happens, right? Like, so you're never going to escape life. So there are situations where these things truly happen, but there is no reason, if something happens to you that makes you sad, that you need to stay in that sadness so long, 4 days, and sit on a couch, and absolutely somebody tells you something ugly. And we get so frustrated because that person told us something that affected us, that makes us angry, makes us frustrated. Like, those are unhelpful emotions. And so once the body's in charge, like, there is like almost never ever a need for us to even be frustrated. Like, that emotion, it's absolutely useless emotion in any situation. We teach the body to actually act appropriately and allow it to release things that are needed to be released, including the stress hormones that are needed in their own situation, but allowing them to come out in a proper moments. And once they do, you really, if you have somebody tells you something that harms you, and from strangers, you really become very easy. It's not that hard, but I understand sometimes there are family members, sometimes there are people we love so much through our life that they can tell us something that hurts us, that we then later like stuck in a body, and then the body pushes it somewhere. But if you give that body that connection, you are actually able not to stay in those situations, stay in that headspace for a long time. You are able to come out of it. You learn things, how you overcome that, how you physiologically, not mentally. This is not a mental process. This is not psychological to some way, because like meditations definitely do help, but it's not the only path, right? Like, you have to involve the body. You have to physiologically involve the body, which can be with movements, which can be with even things like body postures and things, these are the small things. When they say, like, when you stand in that position, like like a Superman. You kind of
Power,
put your,
yeah, power pose. Put on your cape. It's one of my
right, put on
favorite
your,
things.
yeah, put on your cape. You stay in
Yeah.
a power pose. Those things in a stressful situation, if you understand you're doing it for your body, can definitely help you. And those are like one of many things that can mm, help you to come out, to actually truly let go. I think
Okay,
a
but
lot
now
of,
before we carry on with more of these, I want to just stop for a minute and like, so we can like literally stop. I can say, okay, body, this experience that you're having now is not going to kill you. You are still here. You're handling this. You can now relax and breathe out, and you can let go of this. It's not going to kill you.
Mhm. Definitely,
And
definitely. It's a good thing is also to actually say you're sorry to the body, because usually we are the one, the mind is the one who puts the body in it. You know, if you know the Ohonopono prayer, the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. That's one of my absolutely favorite and most powerful thing you can tell your body. If you're gonna wake up, you go through this, you actually just don't, you gotta admit, the guilt is actually not on the body, it's on a self. So if you wake up, if you go through this situation and you go, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive
I'm
me.
having a moment here. I'm thinking, you know what? I need to apologize to my body because, first of all, I pushed it for too long and too hard because I was so unhappy that the only thing that I could do was work. I couldn't be with my unhappiness. I didn't know what to do with it. I had no help. I couldn't find help. But I could work and I loved my work. So I distracted myself with my work. So I did too much of it because it was the only place where I felt like I was making a difference. I had joy in
Mhm.
my work. So I pushed my body too far. And then I have to apologize, I think, to my body because um, I didn't believe that my body would be there for me. I didn't, I stopped having that belief. I didn't understand it was me, that
Mhm.
I wasn't there for my body.
Right, absolutely. Actually, yeah, when you ask, like, even back the question how you get this connection, the apology is actually a like start, because we hurt the body. Like, you we owe the apology to the body always. So, like, aside of not making the body guilty, we have to admit where we were. So it is a really good thing to start with, actually just going and just go like, you know what, I realized it was me, it was not you, it was not you, it was not the body, it was me, and I'm really, really sorry for what I have done. And it really changes the game. I had people in a single, like, just this, if you really sit with yourself and you really put that there, you go through that, that those four little sentences, the Ohonopono prayer. If you do that, or if you actually take the time, you may find yourself crying, you may find yourself breaking something within you in a single sitting, in a single moment. And it's that powerful. It's that powerful. When you create that connection, everything in your life changes.
Listen,
Everything.
I've had several goosebump moments already and several moments here already. Okay, so what happens if we are in an unhappy situation? I want to clarify a little bit more because nearly any time when we are unhappy, we see ourselves as the victim of somebody else. We see ourselves as being powerless over something else, which is very much an adult child syndrome thing where if you grew up in a challenging circumstances, you're quite likely to have a bit of a victim attitude of people are doing stuff to us, even if you don't see your own victimhood. What what will your body response be if you walk around your life being in a victim attitude? What will what's the most likely outcome for you?
Well, it disconnects. This is, it does not, it still loves you. It's still, It's like a child of a alcoholic parent. It's not gonna give up on a parent. It's just there, like hoping that a parent's gonna stop drinking, and it just be sad, and it will suffer. But it'll suffer for you. That's the word. Like that's like the hardest thing. It'll suffer for you, and it's waiting for you to like come to that moment to realize like you're supposed to love me. This is wrong. Like I know it's wrong, but on some ways it has to disconnect in order for its own survival, because it is the body's job is to keep you alive. It's to keep your soul in this body. Your body's job is to give your soul the experience of living. And so that's what happens.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the body-mind connection and, illnesses in our life and then what to do.
Okay. So, going into back to what we just talked about, it's, it is my spiritual belief that definitely we do have the soul, that it's independent, a little bit independent on the life of our body. Like our soul was there before, our soul will be there after we go. But our life experience in here is just this, beginning and end point that we can either consider the beginning being conception or birth or somewhere in between, and obviously the death. When the body is no longer here with us, the soul kind of leaves. But the soul itself, it's not the body that we all know, because it has a different type of identity. With the body, the soul kind of changes, and there is addition of the self, of the understanding self. There is the ego that kind of dies with the body. And this place where that body and soul connects, this cross section, it's what I call the mind. This is where I see the mind be. And so the mind is like interpreter that we have through this life form to help us to connect the body with the soul, because the mind is not your soul and the mind is not your body, but the mind can access both. Like when we meditate, we're mostly trying to access the soul, which is amazing, and it can help the body because we're healing the mind. And whenever we're healing the mind, we are helping the body because the mind has connection to both. But just meditation itself, it's connected to the soul. What we don't usually do, it's connect the body with the mind. And like, let's say the meditation, again, going back to it, which is wonderful and absolutely important practice, yet it is only one part of the picture, because it does not involve physiological movement. It doesn't involve body physically into it, because at that moment, what we do is we kind of letting the body put on sort of like a resting mode, right? Like we lay down, we sit, but we rest. So the body is actually not an active participant. And so what I have like really worked for was creating a way and creating something that is a pathway that allows the body being the active participant with the mind, which again has this access to the soul to some level as well, because whenever we're fixing the mind, we're helping both connections. So what happened a lot of times in our life, when some like traumatic events happen, the mind gets like overpowered. It gets a little more power. In my home country, we have the saying about fire, that fire is a great servant, but really bad boss. Because when it's a servant, it keeps our house warm. We can have the fire in a fireplace and we're nice and cozy and warm. But if the fire gets out of hand, we'll lose that house. And it's a similar thing what the mind does. As long as the mind is within the place it needs to be, it makes this beautiful servant where it helps the body, helps the soul, and it makes this beautiful connection. It's this good entity in between. But once we somewhere in it gets harmed, whether the soul gets harmed, the body gets harmed, something in that gets harmed, the mind wants to overgrow. And it's just like, or when the ego overgrows. It doesn't even have to be physiological things. Like, it doesn't even have to be traumatic. Even if we spoil a child too much, and if we allow the ego to overgrow to extended places, and we have, the mean boss and the mean people around us, it does not mean they have the greatest health. Usually they
I
suffer.
understand completely what you're saying because I see this in my clients all the time. Because my clients are people who have adult child syndrome, which means they are walking around with some sort of trauma in them. And like most people believe that their thoughts are who they are, and their mind, their thoughts, and very attached to their mind and their thoughts. And what they don't understand is that exactly the way you say it, it is being the bad boss because it is out of control. So there is excessive rumination over and over and over negative thoughts, or over and over obsessive thinking, trying to make sense of things, or packing stuff in little boxes and, like this goes there and that, over control, excessive dwelling of the past. It shouldn't have been if it was different. Excessive worrying about the future. So much anxiety coming from the worry, and so this is what one of the examples of your mind can be a very bad boss if you are not aware that your mind is not the boss of you. Your mind is supposed to be a beautiful tool for heating your water, whatever, a tool
Greatly
to
said.
create in your life what
Absolutely.
you really need from it, which you are in charge. You, yourself, you are in charge. But it's an instrument that you actually need to learn how to use before it can be in charge of you. But you can't blame it for your life, or you can't be attached to the fact that I'm thinking that, therefore that's who I am.
Absolutely. No thought can reside within you without your permission, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the mind can be. That's why, like, I don't focus. So many people, there is like just pretty much everybody right now focuses, and they go like the mind body connection. You need to go to the mind to heal the body. And if I look at it the way how I see it, you need to go to the body to heal the mind. It's not mind body connection. What I work with is the body mind connection to go back, because going to the mind, yes, the mind did hurt the body, but like, do you go to the abuser and ask the abuser to stop abusing? It's so much better to get to that victim there and teach the victim not to be a victim, not to be a victim. Stop having the victim mentality. And actually, through that work, they can change the behavior of that abuser. And the mind really does not want to abuse you either necessarily. It just, once it gets out of hand, it kind of like, it's like fire. It just, like, like we said, like, it just overgrows. But if you go from the body back to the mind, it is much easier pathway to heal than trying to go to that mind to heal the body.
Okay, you need to explain that a little bit more.
Um, okay. Do you want to like just give me a little more specific question? How to?
Okay,
Because
okay, all right. So now you have somebody who's suffering from like me, migraines, a lot of migraines. Okay, and you are convinced that you're having these migraines because you're not being supported, but you don't want to have these migraines anymore. And so you're basically now the victim of your body and the migraines. So how do you, how do you, what's the conversation? What is not the conversation, because then you go to your mind again. What is it that needs to happen from your body side? Because you say you're coming from your body side. I just want to use my mind to fix this thing. So stop me wanting to use my mind and tell me how to use my body. Tell me, because you've still lost me a little bit there. So I want to understand this better.
okay. So this goes kind of also where about talking like what people want, what they aim at, which a lot of times is what you're aiming, it's like just absence of some problem. And that's not necessarily helping your body. It's not the place where your body heals. Like how we think of having, it's very easy for every person to understand that being ill is on a scale. If you're just gonna have a seasonal allergy, it's tiny bit of not healthy, but it's not really like a huge deal. If you have a little cold, if you have an allergy, not a huge deal. You're not healthy, but it's not a huge deal. Then you can go worse. You can go having some harder issues until you can get to the point where you may actually suffer from having, cancer or some kind of, having issues with your heart on a scale that you can have a heart attack. So you can be in a place where the health is borderline with death. And we get that. Everybody gets that. Like everyone who's usually ill, like not everyone, most people, where they focus is just not have whatever the problem they have, right? Like it's just the absence of the disease. That is not helping the body. That is still not being on the side of the body. That puts you at the ground zero. That puts you, what we aim, like that's like if you go and you take your phone, you're going someplace and you plug in there, you go like, okay, I'm gonna set my GPS where I'm going, and you're setting your GPS not to have this problem. That's where you're heading. Your body's not going to take you anywhere else. That's the things you're heading. Instead of actually setting the GPS to have a vivacious body, the body that is thriving, it doesn't make any difference. It actually makes it much easier, because if your final destination is the body that it's thriving, that it's self-healing, that it's just vivacious, it is in a place where your body is feeling physiological joy. You feel this joy, and that in that place of joy, it's when you have a migraine, do you ever feel physiological joy? Do you ever feel that joy like a 2-year-old?
Oh no, definitely not.
Exactly. So if your final destination was to feel the physiological joy, it would be impossible for you to have a migraine at the same time, right? The moment you feel that joy, and that can be just as much your destination. So like that's the same like how I do my coaching. I actually have like my tagline is connect, flourish, heal. And then I have people go like, shouldn't it be like connect, heal, flourish? I'm like, no, because everybody focuses on like, oh, I gotta just like fix this problem and I will flourish later. I'm like, no, you gotta flourish first, because when you flourish, the healing happens automatically. That's a side effect. That's not even like, it's automatic. It does not. You don't even have to focus on that whatsoever. Just like you don't have to focus on your diet. You don't have to, because when you focus on what like little kids have, if you focus on what little 3-year-old running around like on Christmas morning has, and you every single day allow your body to experience, and you have to train that. Like you have to train with that connection. You have to get your connection with your body. Like I take people through the entire process of this. But when you train your body and you every single day start feeling a little bit of that physiological joy, one thing, you want more of it. Like, so it's very easy to get like, once I get people to feel it, everybody's overachiever, like every single person, because like you'll go, I'll put you there, like we'll do 3 minutes, your job is 3 minutes, and everybody's like, why would I feel it for 3 minutes if I actually get to feel it for longer? Like, why would I want to do it for short? So you leave it longer. But once you feel it every single day for just a fraction of the time, everything else in your day changes, because you are already in such a high level. Your GPS was sent at the exact opposite scale. What is the borderline death? So you're no longer setting your GPS in your head for your body to strive for lack of disease, lack of presence of something. You are setting yourself up for that physiological joy where you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to face the day.
So we have lost the belief, and therefore we set our expectations too low. We somehow have lost the idea that we could be this this joyful body. We could be inside this joyful, energetic body.
We have nothing to support that. If you think about pharmaceutical company, what they want you to do is just everybody barely wants you to smear off because there is no money. I'll bring you into the joy. You don't need no supplements. I don't support any supplements. I don't support like any kind of things that actually cost money. Everything I do with people is free to them. Like everything they, the way you connect to the nature, things that we need, that the body needs, is really not costly. Except, yeah, you're not supposed to eat like really bad food, but to be honest, once you probably a sixth grader, I no longer have to, like, even little kids know what it's like. You should eat more vegetables. Like the basic understanding of what is a healthy diet is enough for you to go in your life. So yeah, you probably wouldn't be eating at a fast food restaurant every day, but it does not mean anything like huge. Like we just have to, like, it that nobody this society, our society is not set, including the health society, including the holistic healing, because they still make money on the supplements. You always have someone who's trying to sell you on something that makes you feel your body needs, and without that thing, or that thing especially, even if it's a healthy, like they'll go like, okay, so it's my organic mix, and you'll do it every morning, you drink that, and you're supposed to feel better, and you, to some level, you are, instead of understanding, if you're not chewing your things, you're losing our ability to chew. You're actually taking the power we're supposed to do. If you're not a baby or a completely old person, you're not supposed to have milkshake or like whatever fruit shakes or something. We're supposed to actually use our mouth. We're supposed to use the body. The body wants to be used. So the body wants all these things.
So let me connect a few dots. If we have had a lot of trauma, or even small minor traumas, but we have internalized it as children or any time during our process to where we are today, then our whole process of squishing the feelings away means that we are disconnecting from our bodies. And so the relationship that we are building with our bodies is really a disconnected one. So we are disconnected from we are really sleepwalking. So we are on autopilot a lot of the time, and we are being disconnected from having a great relationship with our bodies. And then once we wake up and we start practicing different techniques, we can get back to being not only have much healthier thought patterns, which is a stuff that I teach, and getting free from our traumas, but from a whole different direction. We can start with our body, and our body have a relationship with our body, which will actually produce a lot of joy in us, without even the heavy lifting on the other side.
Absolutely, because when you're in that physiological joy, when that's what you focus on, it's like being the child. Like the body is in a place of growth, no matter what stage of your life. It's like a green. It's like it can become the tree in a spring that lost all its leaves in the fall, went through the winter, but then all of a sudden you have people like you chop the dead ends, and then all of a sudden this plant, it starts growing this beautiful green leaves, and that's what you focus on. You don't focus on lacking the disease. You will focus on allowing the body to be in a physiological joy, because the physiological joy will not allow majority of issues to even be present.
Okay, so I think a lot of people are going to want to know more about what you're doing. So right above the video, just wait, is all your details, how to connect with you, how to get your books, and how to work with you. So I just want to quickly check with you. Do you work with people one-on-one, or do you work in a group?
At this moment, I'm thinking in the future, maybe in a group, but at this moment, because every person's issues is individual, and a lot of times they're on a very intimate level, I work one-on-one. And so if anybody wants, I'll give one, there should be a link to my booking page. And so I can give one free hour for anyone. If you want to book in, you can book in a talk with me. I'll give out a free hour and we can really focus on you exactly and exactly your body and how to help your body. So thank you.
I don't easily say this. I'm blown away by this. It's I honestly have had several moments here, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one. So I'm going to ask our audience to please share, because we know that a lot of people need this, and we know that a lot of people are completely disconnected from their bodies and on autopilot. So please share this far and wide as much as you can, so that we can pay it forward and help more people become present in their own lives and become the masters of their own life. Takara, thank you so very much for talking to
Thank
me and sharing all this wisdom. I know you're pregnant, and I know you had to battle morning sickness to be here. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that, and showing up and looking as fresh as a daisy. Thank you, um, and thank you for everyone who's watching. And
you.
much love.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate having this opportunity because it is my life mission. I definitely feel it is why I'm here, is to help people understand. And thank you for helping me to spread my message. And much love to you, much love to you all, and hopefully we'll meet again.